All right. Now we have GRE myths. I'm gonna take another swig real quick unless anyone else has other questions. Is this valuable? Are you guys are you picking up what I'm putting down? Like, is this helpful? Or am I just telling you old news, things that you've already heard before? Because to me, it's really important to make sure I'm getting a pulse on like, whoa, this makes sense. This piece of information's helping me. So go ahead and type in the chat box. Okay. Saeed, let's see here. Last 60 hours from the last 60 hours before you apply. Yes. So the question is, are the last 60 hours from the 60 hours before you apply? Again, it's the most recent graded 60 hours that you have when you submit your application. Because one of the things that happens to applicants is they're like, oh, I'm going to retake this class in the spring, right? They're applying in the summer or the fall, and then they're retaking a class in the spring. Guess what? Your retake might not get factored into your GPA at all because the academic update happens in February. And so if you're retaking a class that won't be graded until right before you graduate in April, that class probably won't get factored in. Okay. So it's all about timing of when am I going to actually retake these classes, and is that retake going to factor in so it can boost my prereq GPA? Okay. Helpful. Good. Awesome. Good. All right. So let's go talk about the GRE. Okay. Myths. Every DPT program requires you to take the GRE. That's not true. I just revised my programs that don't require you to take the GRE. That number is going up significantly. There's a variety of factors going into that. COVID caused a lot of programs to say, you know what, we're not going to look at the GRE. Programs in general are just realizing that the GRE may not be as good of an indicator to help determine if applicants are successful or not. So that list is growing. You can easily look it up on PTCAS, and you just look at programs that don't have codes that say, hey, they just don't have a code that you would send your GRE scores to. They don't require the GRE. Pretty plain and simple. Okay. Every DPT program weights your GRE scores the same. No. Some programs really emphasize the GRE. Other programs, you just kind of have to take it, and they just want to see that you've done relatively well, but it doesn't factor in as much. Every program weighs things differently. And this is, again, guys, this is why it's so important that you reach out to a program, because they may say, yeah, that's our average GRE score, but we really don't look at it that much. So maybe you're really strong in all the categories that you apply, but the GRE isn't your strong suit. Maybe you're just not a good standardized test taker, and that's okay. There's ways to get around that. I'll tell you that there was an applicant. He's actually Kyle. Some of you guys may know him from, he's been on, he coaches some of you. He's helping me with my newsletters. You're going to see him more and more. So he's one of my assistant coaches, and he's awesome. When he applied, he reached out to a program, and they literally told him, this is how we weight each area of your application. Here's a spreadsheet that you can use to see how you would rank. Just because he reached out and he asked. Guys, they gave him the key. They told him, like, you want to know how you're going to stand out? This is how you do it. And this is the score that we used as a cutoff to determine who's going to come to interviews. You know how much more confidence he had in applying to that program after that email? Because he could go in and figure out. Like, I'm telling you, don't be afraid of rejection. Lean into it. Ask questions, and you never know what information you're going to get. It's awesome. But if you don't ask, you're never going to find out. Okay. If I don't get a 300 on the GRE, I can't get into PT school. By now, you should probably figure it out. Not true. That was kind of the old rumor of like the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s. But that's not the case, right? I have to sign up for expensive prep materials to do well on the GRE. Definitely not true. I'm not even going to talk about that one more. Okay, GRE. So these are the percentiles, okay, of the, again, male accepted and female accepted applicants from the most recent applicant data report. So for the verbal or like vocab section, you're looking right about a 55 to 50, like a 54% basically on average between those two, okay? Go to the quantitative section between males and females. You're looking at kind of 44 and up ish. And then the analytical or the writing section, you're at a 56 plus, right? Percentage, the percentile scored. So what does that look at? What does that look like in terms of scoring itself? So this is from the most recent ETS GRE guide to the use of scores. So let's look at it, okay? So for verbal reasoning, a 152 puts you at the 53rd percentile. And for quantitative reasoning, a 152 puts you at the 44th percentile. If you get a 4 on the analytical writing, that puts you at the 55th percentile. Okay, so if we break that down, target GRE scores. If a program really values the GRE and you want to do well on it, get the highest score that you possibly can, but don't let the GRE just run your life. Okay, so for verbal, if you get the 53rd percentile, you need to get greater than a 152. So I, in general, recommend you get a 153 plus. For quantitative, 44th percentile is a 152. So get greater than a 152, get a 153 plus. And analytical is a 4 plus, 55th percentile, okay? All right, so my number one way that I recommend people study, there are a ton of free practice tests out there, guys, online that you can use to help you determine how you're gonna do. I recommend that you take a GRE practice test like within the next week. If you're getting ready to take the GRE, it's gonna do two things for you. If you take a GRE practice test, you're gonna figure out in real time, how am I stacking up? How am I doing? If I took the GRE today, how would I score? That's going to give you information to help you objectively determine how long do I need to study? What do I need to study? I'm not a big fan of like, I'm going to sign up for some study program and I'm going to work through that. And then like a couple weeks before I take the GRE, I take my first practice test. This process of taking a practice test, reviewing it, figuring out where you're weak, and then studying those areas and then taking another practice test is the exact same process that you're going to use when you study for the licensure examination. Okay, take a test, see where you suck, study those things, take another test, see where you suck, and then you just keep going. You keep going and keep going, right? That is my study prep in general. That's what I recommend applicants do. And for those who sign up for my coaching package, I have a lot more sophisticated process than that. But in general, that's what I did. That's what applicants do. And I did just fine on the GRE, right? And so many other applicants say the same thing. It's not worth investing thousands of dollars in a prep program that essentially, yeah, there's tips and tricks that you're going to learn and it's important to study, but you're going to figure those things out by doing the actual thing, which is taking the test. Like, why are we studying? To take a test. And we all know that when you're like an athlete or you're competing in anything, the best way to determine how you're going to perform in the real deal is by doing as close as you can to the real deal. So take practice tests. Check with peers, friends, family members, if they have unused study materials that you can use. I did this and I got a ton of free practice tests because people are like, yeah, I used one of them. I had like 2 or 3 left. Here you go. And I got free practice tests. So use your network. Look around. Ask people on your pre-PT club groups.